What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Dark World. That's right, so with this particular build, obviously what I've been trying to tackle and what I've been trying to assess is the biggest weakness to this deck, and that is of course DROLL and Lockbird. Now if you've seen loads of my different profiles, you see that I've gone through stuff like Tour Guide, obviously when Gamma was back at 3, you tried to utilise that as well, but now I have found a new card that will help us out in this deck. It's technically not a brand new card, it is quite an old card, but it's something that you can utilize with this that doesn't allow you to affect anything else and can protect you from DROLL. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So we'll start off with the Dark World cards. So I'm just going to blitz through these as this is pretty staple in my opinion. So you've got your free Rainbow, the free Genta, your free Snow, your double Grepher, and then your 1 silver, the 1 gold, and the 1 Cerulli. Now, obviously, I know, again, comes down to personal preference whether you play gold or not. I still quite like it. I think it is very useful for the entire deck, which is why I still use it. But again, if you don't want to play that, cut it out completely. It's entirely up to you. So that's it with the Dark World monsters, carrying on into the Dark World spells, and then I'll take you through all of the other supporting engines. So you've got your 2 gates of the Dark World, you've got the 1 Accession, the 1 Archives, and of course the 1 Dark Corridor. Again, all pretty straightforward on this one. Some people do play multiple corridors, and the reason I don't play multiple corridors is because I am playing, I might as well go through the rest of the spells now, I am playing double Tactics, Card Destruction, and 2 Talents. Now, obviously the idea behind all of these is that my Talents, or my Thrust, can get me access to Talents, Card Destruction, or Corridor, and obviously they can give me everything I need to. In other versions where you don't have access to the tactics, you will play more corridors. It just comes down to personal preference. 1 for me is perfectly fine. So yeah. Now moving on to the engine that I'm utilizing to combat DROLL. And I know a lot of you are gonna, I'll expect some of the comments, don't worry. And it is Quackemiru Guardian. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with this card, is during each of your end phases, you destroy this card unless you send an Iron Core or a Quackemiru from your hand to the graveyard or reveal a rock monster in your hand. When a monster effect is activated, quick effect, you tribute this card as cost, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that monster. Now, why is this card so good for the deck in combating DROLL directly? So the reason it's so good is because you don't need to utilize your normal summon in the deck. Obviously, I've used Ken and Gen, I've used Lava Golem, I've used loads of other different options. Obviously, Lava Golem is great for breaking boards, which is why it's utilized for going second. With Quackemiru Guardian, you can utilise it for going first and second because just by normal summoning this card at the start of your turn, whether you're going first or second, does align another form of interruption that your opponent then needs to deal with. Now when you're trying to compare something like Tour Guide, the reason that Tour Guide isn't so great is because in order to go through Tour Guide to get you to a level 3 to then get you into the Gossip Shadow, you then need to kind of play through an Ash Blossom and an Imperm and a Veiler. Whereas with something like Quackemiru Guardian, it doesn't get hit with an Ash Blossom. If they try to imperm this, of any sort of chain, you need to go normal summon Quackemiru Guardian, they would then need to imperm it, and straight away that would then telegraph that they have a DROLL and Lockbird. Otherwise, why would you attempt to imperm it before you get to a window of DROLL and Lockbird? Then that being said, should you normal summon the Quackemiru Guardian and you draw a card or search the card and go within DROLL territory, even if your opponent would then want to go imperm, in the same chain they would still need to go imperm, DROLL, and then you can still respond with the Quackemiru Guardian. If they were to go DROLL and you would go Quackemiru Guardian, because it tributes as cost, it's now no longer on the field to imperm it. So it's got so many different ways to dodge multiple hand traps. There's very few hand traps that will actually stop the Quackemiru Guardian being able to negate that DROLL, which is very, very important. Not to mention if they do try and imperm it or anything like that, you're baiting 2 cards from the hands. The only downside of a card like Quackemiru Guardian is it's not going to stay around until the end phase, or it won't survive to go into your opponent's turn unless you open up another copy of itself. But that is not an issue because once you've done all of your searching, protecting yourself with the Quackemiru Guardian, you're then going to ultimately use this as Link fodder or XYZ fodder should you need to. Another card that I'm using to back up the Quackemiru Guardian, if it does get stopped or if it does become to the end of the turn and it becomes a little less relevant to leave it on the board for it to get destroyed, I am also going back to the old school tech of Astral Kuriboh. Now Astral Kuriboh was another option that could really help you in the Tour Guide option, because if Tour Guide did get stopped, you could then still activate Astral Kuriboh, summon it down as a level 3, and then still make your Gossip Shadow. But the reason that makes Astral Kuriboh so good in this deck is it can be utilised to become a level 4, or it can be utilised to become a level 8. Now, the level 8 target we are playing at the moment is the Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, just because it out and out protects you from monster effects. So if you were able to get a Greffa on the board without needing to search, and you had an Astral Kuriboh, you can make your Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, and then again, that's another way to protect you from DROLL. On top of that as well, just being able to end your turn with a Galaxy Photon Lord backing everything up, it then means that you can save your Greffa for any spells and traps, and then you can utilise your Photon Lord for the monster effect. Of course, you can play Hope Harbinger if you're more worried about spells and traps. That is entirely up to you. The other targets that we have for Astral Kuriboh is the Baguska. If you just get absolutely hand-trapped to death, but you're still able to get a level 4 on the board, Astral Kuriboh can go into Baguska and you can slow down the turns in order for it to come back to your turn. And then the final one, of course, is Daguerres. And the reason it's so good to get into Daguerres is because you can detach off of that, draw 2 cards, discard cards, get more advantage. On top of that, Astral Kuriboh is a fiend, so it can be utilised by being banished from grave. You don't have to play Astral Kuriboh at 3 because it can get a little bit cloggy. So you can play it 2 if you want to. I just wanted to maximise the consistency at seeing the cards to help me protect myself from DROLL. So on review, when you're looking at your normal summons, and obviously Ken and Gen is a great option for this, but what I kept finding when I was playing Ken and Gen is every time I played it, it was Imperm, it was Ash, it was stopped in one way or another. Now, arguably, you could play the Ken and Gen engine with Astral Kuriboh, because then again, that will still allow you to get to a rank 3 Gossip Shadow to protect you from future plays. So it's definitely something that I would highly consider if you're not a fan of the Quokimiru Guardian. However, when I was doing all this research, through testing, through everything else that I've done with Dark Worlds, and you've seen that I've put loads of content out, Quokimiru Guardian has become, in my opinion, the best normal summon for the deck, especially when the format and most players are main decking DROLL and Lotbird. The Quokimiru just puts in so much work, and the fact it's a nice 1900 mini boss monster, it can be very difficult for your opponent just to deal with as well. Not to mention it is strong enough just to deal with a SP Little Knight, which is very, very great. So that's it for the little engine. Carrying on with the rest of the day, it's all pretty straightforward on this one. So we've got the danger package of your Nessies, 2 of your Mothman, 1 Bigfoot and 1 Jackalope. Again, you can adapt this as you see fit. Now, I've kept the danger engine to a minimum. The only other honorary danger that I play is, of course, Salamander Catalyzer. I know there are people out there that want to play pure, they want to play stuff like Lucian, they want to play stuff like Brainwashing. This is your 7-card engine that can then allow you to have that space for it. So if you're like, I don't want to play the dangers, then what I'd arguably ask you to consider is stuff like Drag Down to the Grave, Dark World Dealings, and then you would look at stuff like adding in your Brainwashing, your Lucians, and also the Cheerful Coffin. Now, I know Cheerful Coffin was a bit of a spicy tech that was suggested to me a while ago, but I did really quite like that as a replacement for the dangers because it did the exact same job that they did, but it allowed you to guarantee exactly what you were going to discard. And then the final monster that we play in the day is just because it's such a great go first, go second disruptor, and that is, of course, Kashtira Fenrir. If you don't have access to Fenrir, again, it's 3 more slots. The only thing that I avoid with Dark Worlds is any hand traps because they're not useful to you at all. Like, if you're going second, you'll burn through your hand, and then when you're trying to reveal dangers, not so successful. If you're going first and you're revealing the dangers, you've got nowhere to put your hand traps. Like, you don't want to normal summon your hand trap, you don't want to set your hand trap, so it's more times than not going to be risky that it will get lost. The reason I don't play Called by the Grave is I don't like the idea that I have to have the 1 of Called by the Grave when my opponent has that 3 of monster that could hurt me. Now, arguably, you could put Called by the Grave in here, and for those of you that are going, oh, well, I could open up Draw and Lotbird and you still lose. It's like, yes, but you have just as much chance of opening up Draw and Lotbird as I do opening up Quokimiru Guardian. So I'm trying to balance the playing field here when we're dealing with it. So it's the best that I could come up with at this moment in time with the Quokimiru Guardian. Moving on to the extra deck, of course, we are playing 2 of the Greffa Dragon Overlord of the Dark World. And then, of course, we've got the Daguerres, we've got the Baguska, and we've got the Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. And then backing up our XYZs, we do have the 1 Ding, the Orchest of the Evening Star. The reason I've chosen to play this in the deck is just because at my environment, there's a lot of Fire Kings running around. And when Fire Kings are able to protect the Fire King field spell, it's quite nice to be able to make Ding, and then use Ding to send the field spell to the graveyard, because then it will continue to nuke their board, which is actually very useful. The Sky Typhoon, again, initially when a lot of people read this, looked at it and was like, oh, the field spell buffs the Fiend, so he can't bounce a card. It's like, yes, that's fine, but the idea is Typhoon would still become a blanket negate and it would just be stronger, so it can't be run over by Zeus, which is really important. So if your idea is to try and out Zeus, but you've got your field spell, you just go into Typhoon, Zeus is still negated. I just can't bounce back the Zeus, but I can still kill the Zeus by battle. So you're still getting the best of both worlds, and you're not putting the Zeus back in the extra deck for your opponent to use again the next turn. Carrying on with the rest of the Link monsters, so with our Link 2s, you've got the one IP Masquerena, the one SP Little Knight, Cross Sheep, Mark Rucker, Akashic, and then for our Link 4s, we've got the one Saruja, the one Appaloosa, which can very easily become Access Code Talker if you want to be a bit more aggressive and less defensive. And then the one Underworld Goddess, so that when you do lock yourself into Fiends, you still have a way to use it, but also you can use IP to link off into it during your opponent's turn as well. So when you're linking off during your opponent's turn, you've got IP that can go into Appaloosa, SP, or Underworld. More times than not, it's going to be going into the SP Little Knight, but on those chances where you don't want to do that and you've got more materials, you can go into something like an Appaloosa, which will be more helpful for you, or an Underworld Goddess. You have that option too. And that's it. So short, sweet, simple, to the point. I'm not calling this like, this isn't the best anti-meta or the best anti-droll combo ever. It's just, in my opinion, the most successful with the least amount of ways to interrupt it and the least investment for the entire deck. So yeah, that's it for the profile. If you do have any questions, by all means, as absolutely always, put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.